Thanks everybody for coming in. So we've got an awesome panel here today. We've been talking about CX and CPaaS for what, 5, 6, 7, 8, for all of eternity now. But this is really exciting because we're at a point where the technology is coming along and coming together with a promise. So this is a great opportunity for us today. We've got 3 awesome panelists who are joining us. I'll start from left to right. So we've got Beth Schultz, VP of Research at Metrigy. We've got Jonathan Bean, who's the CMO at Cinch, to give us a nice little vendor perspective. And then we've got Raul Castanon with S&P Global. So real quick introduction about the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. So we represent roughly 100 companies who are strictly focused on delivering the best possible customer experience. That customer experience is getting delivered through applications written on CPaaS today, but also CCaaS, UCaaS, other applications that are in the enterprise. So when we talk about the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance, we're focused on the entire stack. And you see companies including Microsoft, Cinch, but also a number of CCaaS and UCaaS providers that are all working together to bring CX forward. So for today, we're gonna kick the conversation off. As we've talked about CPaaS, it's always started with messaging and APIs, right? So that story has changed dramatically over the last 5, 6 years. So we want to get in and talk about how that story has changed. And Raul, why don't you get us kicked off? And let's talk about how CPaaS is much more than just messaging.
Yeah, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Yes? Thank you. Yeah, so I'm an industry analyst and I've been following the CPaaS market for just about 10 years. And it is still widely perceived in terms of messaging. There's reasons for that. The 80-20 is messaging for the use cases. However, there's certainly much more to that. I could point out just 2 trends that we're looking at. First of all, the interaction with customers is going from one-way or transactional interactions to more interactive engagement. And then the second factor is that even though we still see messaging as very relevant for CPaaS, we are seeing that there are additional technologies that are building layers on top of those use cases. So the use cases that companies can address, they are growing increasingly complex, more interesting, I could say. So I think we're beyond the messaging phase, even if it is still the 80-20 for the industry.
Thanks, Raul. And when we talk about messaging and APIs, we've always talked about developers first, but it's so much more than just development and digital native companies that are using CPaaS today. So Beth, what do you guys see in your research in terms of the types of companies that are adopting CPaaS today?
First, let me just say that year over year, we've seen, each year we do a big buyer side study of all sorts of CX technologies. This year's study is just sort of wrapping up, or we're doing the data analysis now, and I did pull the numbers for CPaaS, and we see just about 85, 86% of the companies, now this is globally, all sizes, have adopted CPaaS or are planning to adopt CPaaS in 2024. So big adoption, very few saying that they have no plans, similar figures to last year. And when you ask them what they're using CPaaS for, it's across a wide range of digital channels. Certainly, as Raul said, 80-20 still messaging, but we see it in use for social media messaging is another top use. Workflows, as companies want to start adding more automation into their processes. Self-service is another sort of starting point. Just any digital channel you can, web chat, whatever it might be. And we see it across all company sizes, all regions, and varying degrees, of course, with some really verticals that, especially when you talk about mobile messaging, text messaging, retail, healthcare, those are big. Logistics, beyond the digital native. So we see very widespread adoption and interest by all means.
Are there any particular verticals that you guys are seeing adoption heavily in?
I haven't done the cut on the verticals for this 2024 study, but we see a lot of interest from healthcare and retail. Again, those companies that are reaching out to consumers via text messaging, sort of, and all sorts of other different channels, but a lot of advanced use cases for those two industries and financial services for that matter as well.
Okay, great. Jonathan, from a Cinch perspective, what are you guys seeing in terms of usage and adoption?
Yeah, I think pretty much, exactly as Beth said, it's really encouraging for CPaaS that it's gone beyond the, early digital natives, and it's really gone mainstream into the enterprise, whether you call them digital adopters or whatever you call them, right? So we still do a lot of work with the digital natives and see some real, innovative use cases from the likes of DoorDash and those type of people. But what's really heartening for me to see is a lot of the enterprises, that are probably more traditional. If we look at Porsche as a company, right, what they're doing around service with some of our CPaaS solutions is pretty awesome. If I look at a company, if you look at a company like Harrods, it's a very big brand, that is transforming its experiences there. I think one of the things as well that both panelists have talked about is sort of rich conversational experiences, right? And you can go from that one-way interaction to a true conversational experiences. You can put the chatbot experience in there. You can really get great results. I mean, everyone is looking to have this wonderful combination of cutting costs, increasing revenue, and increasing customer experience all at the same time, right? And dependent where you are on the customer journey, that is now possible. I think what's also good to know, and we're sitting here in Orlando, but we've got a lot to learn from some of the more, let's call it developing economies in the world, or the global south, or whatever. If you look at what India is doing there, we see huge growth there, particularly on WhatsApp, but other channels with financial institutions there. If you look at what's going on in Latin America, we've just done a great sort of use case with DoorDash looking to recruit lots of Hispanic drivers here in the US using WhatsApp and amazing conversational experiences there. So, that area is very, very big. It's all companies as well. We see a lot of growth, yes, in the enterprise, but also in the SMB segment as well, adopting CPaaS becoming mainstream. And then, I won't go and talk about verification because that's a big part of the business as well, which is going through a huge shift as well, with a myriad of opportunities. So we see a lot of change across a lot of different areas.
Yeah, great. And certainly here in North America, we've had a very North American point of view on this, right? But at the Alliance, we're seeing a ton of opportunity in emerging economies, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Africa. When we talk to our membership base, everybody's excited about the opportunities in those regions. So flip it a little bit here. Over the years, I've gotten plenty of questions. What's the difference between CPaaS, CCaaS, UCaaS, and all these other applications that we use? I'd love to get your guys' perspective. What's the difference, and where, as we look at the overlap between these applications, what does that mean for people that are trying to map out what their application architecture is going to look like and where their spend's going to be?
Yeah, that's usually one of the first questions that comes up when we talk about these topics. The way I talk about it is in terms of the evolution of communications. I see CPaaS as disrupting the overall business communications space, where we had traditionally very distinct categories, namely CCaaS and UCaaS. And with CPaaS, we have a disruptor in a sense that it is more of a flexible framework that organizations can use either to complement what they're doing with UCaaS and CCaaS, or to build their own solutions completely. So that's one way to look at it. Now, what has happened over the last 5 years is a growing convergence with other categories. So you have, for example, Microsoft launching a CCaaS platform, and it's built on their CRM application and their Nuance acquisition. They also launched a CPaaS platform. So you see that convergence, and it's just getting more and more difficult to draw the line. You also have Google launching a CCaaS application, and also based on their AI initiatives. So it's just growing more and more. There's more and more overlap. CPaaS vendors like Plivo, Twilio, they also have their CCaaS applications. So the way I could summarize it, the way I look at it is, I do think that the CPaaS model, which is embeddable communications and flexibility, I think that's what's steadily going to be the predominant model, where UCaaS and even more CCaaS will show similarities to that model. I don't know if that answers the question, but those are my thoughts.
All right. So flipping the page again, when I was walking in, I think I noticed at least 20 signs that had AI somewhere talked about on them. And it feels like every show that we go to, you have to address the AI question. So as we think about AI, why? Because all of these applications have AI built into them now, supposedly. So, Beth, when we're thinking about AI, why would we want to leverage CPaaS for an implementation versus leveraging the out-of-the-box capabilities from a CCaaS or a UCaaS solution?
Well, I think as Raul just ended that his last statement was, the value of the programmability, right? So within a single API, you can do so much more than you can do with just a standard sort of CCaaS implementation. So if you wanted to spin up video calling, for example, or video visual engagement for your consumers, within that API, you can do your translation, you can do your captioning, you can do your transcription. You don't have to do those individually. Same thing with maybe implementing messaging. If you want to personalize that messaging, you can do that with AI within the API itself. Can go on and on with examples, but it is just streamlines the way that you implement, and you get a lot more functionality within that single API. That I think is the big value proposition going forward, and you can keep layering in additional functionality as well.
So I remember 5 or 6 years ago when we were mapping out where the industry was going to go, we always got excited about where AI could take us as a vendor and the things that we could deliver to customers. So it feels like now the technology is actually caught up to our dreams. So Jonathan, from a Cinch perspective, where are you excited on where AI is going to take us?
Yeah, Yeah, I think, AI gives opportunity to, every technology company out there, right? It's not mutually exclusive. Do you just do AI with a UCaaS, CCaaS vendor, or does the CPaaS vendor do it? I mean, everyone will be, engaging with AI. From a Cinch perspective, I mean, we're setting out a framework based around the vision for AI, our transparency and our trust and our standards across all of our products. But if I look at, where we have, a lot of focus, it's actually on detecting fraud. Fraud's a big issue for our industry. About 5% of the different communications channels we see with fraud. So we've really doubled down on, artificially inflated traffic detection and fraud prevention. We've doubled down on sort of ambient monitoring of things like keywords, URLs, and different use cases from a messaging perspective. Then you've got the more sort of, I'd call it sexy. I mean, that's very, very important AI, but then you've got the more, interesting and sexy AI, which is around rich conversational experiences, right? That need those chatbot experiences, and that also need, people need help in identifying which channel to use at which time. AI can be greatly helpful. What do you send an SMS for? What do you send an email for? What do you send an RCS for in a new world as well, right? So I think that is a great application of AI. Then you have things, if you look at rich conversational experiences, knowledge-based AI within that chat experience is very, very important. And then, of course, you've got, I would say, a relatively simplistic, which is the generative AI, stuff, which is quite, if you're looking to generate copy, for an agent, right? Doing that's relatively, you can't differentiate on that stuff. Every vendor here will be using that, but you need to make sure that is in your product. And I think it's really, again, where is the person going to be important here, and where is the AI going to be important here? And what customers certainly tell us is they want to put their people, on the hardest problems along the customer journey. Today, with a lot of the services, vendors that they're using, they're putting their people on some pretty mandatory, cases. So if we can move in that direction where they're really having AI alongside people on the hardest parts of the customer journey, that's where we're all going to win, actually.
That's awesome. And you guys are demonstrating some pretty cool stuff at your booth, in addition to giving out shirts at
we are shirts and bees, yes.
All right, excellent.
Bees. Yeah.
So I want to wrap up. I want to wrap up with some tactical pieces. So if everybody walks out of here today and does one thing with CPaaS, where would you guys recommend that they start?
Starting with me. So I can't say that there's one place to start, but what I would say is you have to look across that entire customer journey and look at all those touch points and what do consumers want? What can you bring to consumers that will help their experience, greatly enrich their experience, whether it's, you mentioned generative AI. Well, if you're going back and forth, and rich conversational text, if you're going back and forth with them in a trusted, verified way, then why not serve them up a summary of that whole conversation right there in the messaging channel? Or if you are at the stage where you're not understanding your customers fully, well then take opportunity to use programmability to embed a feedback request or shoot off a text message following an interaction. You can do all sorts of things, but just really understand the customer journey and where your pain points are. I think it's going to be different for everybody, but that's the way to go about it.
From my perspective, I mean, there's many issues to pay attention to. The one that I constantly highlight is the need for trusted communications. If we think about how organizations are evolving as they embark on the digitization of the customer and employee experience, the use of digital communications just keeps growing, and we see that in our survey data, companies are looking to increase their spend on digital communications. With this, what has happened post-pandemic, there has been a significant increase in abusive practices, going from robocalls, SMS, phishing, fraud, and the consequences are significant. It's not just money, not just the dollar numbers in terms of fraud, it's also the trust and shaping the behavior of consumers. So they might not be picking up the phone or reading your SMS messages, even if they are legitimate communications. So I think that companies should be looking, as they increase their spend on digital communications, they should also be looking at trusted communications and just a different number of mechanisms to ensure that they are enabling a safe engagement with their customers.
I think I agree with both panelists, surprisingly enough. I mean, with Beth's comment around, what I often say to customers is, what is most painful on your customer journey? Focus there, because there'll be a CPaaS opportunity there, whether it be a messaging opportunity, a voice opportunity, a conversational rich opportunity with a new channel. We can help you solve that in a very simple and easy way. And then, here on Raul's point around security, really mobile identity or identity in general and trust is probably one of the biggest digitalization, both threats and opportunities for companies today. So getting that right and having a really good secure environment where you are, where you're using mobile identity in a very, very positive way to benefit the customer journey, to be able to serve them a great customer experience, that's where I would start. So start with wherever it hurts most. Make sure you get your mobile identity and authentication and trust right.
Awesome. And it really is.
I was just going to say, it's amazing what just a logo along with the text does for that sort of generating that trust.
And it really is cliche to say, but the sky is the limit with CPaaS, right? You start with something and you just chip away at what's the next most challenging thing as an enterprise to get done, and the odds are CPaaS is going to be able to get that done for you. So thank you, Raul, Jonathan, and Beth for sitting down with us today. We're at booth 519, the CPaaS Innovation Village over there. We've got free t-shirts, we've got candy bars, and we've got some of our awesome members are hanging out over there showing the great stuff that they're doing. So thanks for stopping by.